So we have hit the top of the hour. Once again, thank you for joining us for the live webinar here from PitchMark. I'm Mark Lowdy. For the next, in the first 20 minutes at least, we will look through the intractable issue that we all seem to face: IP theft, idea theft. You're presenting an idea, perhaps to a client, maybe a supplier, perhaps a class of adult learners, only to find that your ideas soon go wandering and other people claim it as their own. Or they apply your ideas and don't in any way give you any recognition for it. That is what we are here to discuss this afternoon. And the first step is, in fact, for you to please scan the QR code on the screen now and tell us a little bit more about what IP you produce in your industry or line of work. And keep your phone handy, because actually I've got a few QR codes for you to scan in the next hour. Business ideas. Yep, training content. If you go to the PitchMark YouTube channel, you'll see details of our recent webinar focused specifically on the training industry. If you're a corporate trainer, let's say, or perhaps even at a university, you have a unique and specialized curriculum that you own, that you developed. How do you stop your students from just copying your curriculum, or worse, other faculty members or even visitors at a conference taking your curriculum and teaching it as their own? So once again, you can find that video on the YouTube channel here at PitchMark. Another question that we asked you is, have you had clients or prospects steal your ideas in the past? Has this happened to you? So far, 3 of you have voted, and so far you've said that no, this hasn't happened to you. Okay, maybe once or twice. Yep, once or twice this has happened. And you know that sinking feeling when you first read your work or look at your work, watch your work, listen to your work on somebody else's website, or as we've also heard from time to time, people giving presentations and then at some sort of industry conference, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, there's another industry conference, same industry. And then somebody who was in the audience in the first one ends up presenting your slides in the second one. So that would also not be uncommon. So far, it looks like all of you, at least those of you who voted, have had some experience with this, haven't we all? You know, that's the thing that we always discovered once when we first launched PitchMark, is that virtually everybody has a story to tell. Everybody's had some examples, some issues where they've presented an idea of some sort, only to then, find somebody else ripping it off. Another question we asked you in advance of today, and you're welcome to continue to respond to, is this one here appearing on your screen now. What is the worst case of IP theft you've experienced? Let's see what you've written. Improper reproduction of your copyrighted material? Yes. Stole my concept and client. Wow. Okay. Yes. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, to avoid that situation. How do we deter people from doing this to begin with? How do we stop them and make them think twice? Value proposition. Once again, keep them coming. You can actually just cycle through these slides and answer these and other questions. The QR code, once again, is on the screen. If you've just joined us, we say good afternoon to Kate. Please feel free to scan the QR code. If you do close your browser and then scan the QR code again, you start at the beginning. So you might just want to keep your browser open. Right now on screen, the question we've asked you is, does the law fully protect your IP rights? And so far, only 1 of you says mostly, 2 of you say no, it doesn't. And we've also asked you where you currently are based, and that is here on this map. And it looks like we have some of you in Singapore. It looks like Indonesia, possibly, as well as Vietnam. Well, wherever you're dialing in from, thank you for joining us in our PitchMark webinar, How to Deter IP Theft and Get Paid for Your Ideas. Well, it has to be said that getting paid for the ideas is, of course, the reason why most people actually come up with ideas to begin with. That's why we sit in meetings. That's why we deliver our pitches in beauty parades, those marketing events where the creatives show off their best work. And because getting paid for your ideas is really, the buck stops when the buck stops. That is, in essence, what we're here to talk about today: how to deter people from ripping off your idea and earn license revenue at the same time. Keeping your QR code handy, or rather your phone handy for these QR codes. Here's another one for you to join, and that is the PitchMark account. Once again, that is available to you. It is free to sign up for PitchMark and free to PitchMark your work. That is, to generate the sort of certificates that we'll walk you through this afternoon. And then comes another QR code for you to scan, and this one will take you to our WhatsApp community. We have a variety of groups that focus on different aspects of the creative industries. And really, there is no limit to the amount of creativity that we're seeing and that you can PitchMark. It could be a graphic design or some other visual. It could also be text. Perhaps you've written a white paper, a book, presentation, or perhaps it's an audio file or even a video file. You're able to PitchMark them all, and we have specific groups to reach out to all of you. So once again, scan this QR code, and then the hope is, of course, that you'll be able to join us in our conversations beyond today. Cool. Well, let me run you through some of the things that we will cover. Here it is on the screen. We're almost through our welcome. And in a few moments, we'll have a look at what IP laws are actually available to you. What recourse is there? What does the law offer in the event that you do have a lawyer, or you don't mind getting a lawyer, and you actually then decide that you want to pursue a legal case against somebody? Clearly, the law does exist, and there are different laws that protect different aspects of your intellectual property. What we're talking about here today is, of course, those less formal, those casual moments when people steal ideas thinking that they can just get away with it. And that is actually what usually happens. Most times people don't kind of set out to have a corporate policy of stealing people's ideas. Usually this sort of thing happens in the dark, right? You're in a meeting room, you're delivering your graphic design pitch, or you're playing back your jingle, whatever it is that you've created. And for that time, it is just you and the prospective buyer there in the studio, in the meeting room, as it were. And once again, they're not setting out to steal your idea, but they might sit back and say, yeah, this is actually a very nice design, but I think we can probably get somebody in our company to produce something very similar, but for free. And so because most IP theft happens in this very casual, informal sort of environment, that's why PitchMark exists, to cast a big bright light on it and ultimately make sure that people are aware that other people are watching. In addition to the IP law overview, we will also talk about how to actually raise these issues with your clients and prospects. Because, the fact is that most people are a little bit uncomfortable in bringing this up. You are talking to your prospect or your customer. You have a nice chat. You want the sale to go well. You want the conversation to go well, only to then find that actually the customer is taking some notes. Now, you don't want to put the customer off, right? You don't want to put the prospect off. So chances are that you're actually going to say nice things and leave the IP conversation for later. And that, unfortunately, gives them the permission to then rip off your idea. What we want to get to is a point where you are actually comfortable to have these conversations with your customer, where talking about IP rights is just as easy as it is talking about the product or service that you're about to deliver, where it's just as easy to talk about IP rights as it is to talk about price. Because after all, when the customer's interested in the price, then you know that they're on the hook. So that is the aim of our conversation today, and why the registration for PitchMark is here on your screen. Okay, as I mentioned, there are a number of these QR codes to take. Here is the PitchMark WhatsApp community QR code, which I hope you will also join to continue our conversation beyond today. And what you can see here on the IPOS website are the different types of intangible assets that you can register. Have a quick look at this graphic in terms of the registerable IP on the right and the non-registerable ones on the left. And what you can clearly see here is that there are certain things that you can register, right? And it says here in the top right corner. You're probably familiar with these. Trademarks, patents, designs. Did you know this one? Geographical indications. You probably know this from champagne. You can only produce the sweet, bubbly wine and call it champagne if you have in fact registered, or if you have in fact only produced this wine in the Champagne region of France. So that's where geographical indications come from. Plant varieties, you possibly didn't know that you could register those. And these registerable types of IP are of course important. If you can get such a registration for your idea, do it. The resources are available, right? There are lots of lawyers that will help you do that. If you can register a patent, do it. It'll cost you a lot of money, and you have to go country by country to apply for the patent in every country that you want to sell your product in. But it is possible. And then you have the legal documentation. If somebody rips off your idea, you can take them to court if you wish. Right? So if you can register your IP, or your idea, then do so. But there are obviously lots of times when it's not possible to register. And there we go to the left-hand side. Let's look at trade secrets, for example. This is a very handy graphic because it really spells it out. Trade secrets are the sorts of things that you don't want to tell anybody. One of the disadvantages of a patent is that actually your idea has to be published. People will be able to see it. I mean, the patent office, for starters, will be able to see it because they need to consider whether your invention is in fact so unique that you deserve a patent. Whereas trade secrets are the sorts of things that you'd prefer not to tell anybody. And then obviously you're not going to be able to register that because other people will have insights. Copyright you can't register. Now, in copyright, you can, of course, claim at any time you've produced something. Every time you write a letter, write an email, arguably you could say, that's my copyright. But once again, the problem is that because it's not registered, the recipients often think that they can be a bit cavalier about it. And they will then take the copyright or kind of ignore the copyright notice at the bottom of the page and get an approximation of your idea and reproduce that. And so what PitchMark is about is to deter that sort of behavior and to, in essence, create clarity and formality around what is usually kind of handled in a very informal, laissez-faire sort of way. Now, the IPOS website also has a variety of other pages, which again, I commend to you. It'll explain in very plain English, for example, what a patent is, as well as all the other types of registerable IP that we talked about a few moments ago. But once again, if you can legally protect your ideas, do it. Hire a lawyer, pay them well, they will register it for you. What we're about today is all the times that doesn't apply quite so easily. Having conversations about IP with your clients, deterring people from taking screenshots of your PowerPoint slides, for example, and then passing them off as their own. That's the sort of issue that we are here to address today. So let's delve deeper into the virtues of deterrence rather than the big stick after somebody has already ripped off your idea. Don't we always say prevention is better than cure? And it's also cheaper. And when you look at this comparison chart between suing somebody there in the middle column or prevention, deterring that sort of idea theft before it happens, you can see how very clearly there are already some immediate benefits. Deterrence is free. Suing somebody is bound to cost you a whole bunch of money. And if you've ever been taken to court or have taken others to court, as the plaintiff, it's going to cost you money. And so there's the first incentive to deter. Here's the next one. Once again, if you've actually been involved in court action in the past, you'll know just how much of time and energy and attention that it actually consumes. Half the time you're thinking about whether you will win in court. When you deter IP theft, when you signal to the recipient that you take your IP seriously and they had better respect it, not only do you save money, you also save time and distraction. Here's the next one. And this harks back to what I was saying about 5 minutes ago. You want the client to like your idea. You want the client to buy. You're biting your tongue about your IP rights because you don't want to put anything in the way of the customer saying yes to the pitch that you're delivering to them. You want to have a good relationship with them. You want this to be a friendly, long-term, cooperative relationship. So, once again, if you end up suing them because you feel aggrieved that they have taken your ideas and have made millions with it, not only will it cost you time, not only will it cost you money, but it'll probably also cost you the relationship. There are very few cases that you can come back from suing somebody to continuing to supply them. Which gets us to the last couple of points, and here's this one. Yes, of course you can sue. By all means, get your trademark, patent, whatever it is. You see somebody knock off your ideas, passing off as your idea. Yes, you can sue them. But will you win? And that's often the sort of balancing act that people then go through when they decide, do I sue somebody for this or do I let it go? Because yes, I might spend all that money, I might spend all that time, ruin the relationship, and in the end, I still don't win. Whereas deterrence is free, saves you that time and effort and aggravation. It's actually part of a very professional conversation that builds your relationship. And ultimately, while it's not watertight, it is significantly more effective. So the primary goal, as it says here on the screen, do we want to come in after the fact, or do we want to ensure that this is actually preventative, proactive? What you'll find is that it all comes down to these points here on the screen. So where does this leave us? We've decided, yes, we want to have more of a deterrent effect. We want to have continued good relationships with our customers. We want to be sure that the customers are in fact deterred from taking any action because the alternative is just too costly. So what are our options? And that's, of course, what we are here to talk through during the course of this afternoon. And I will show you two things. Firstly, how to PitchMark your idea, and then how to license it to your prospective customer. So firstly, you PitchMark it. Before you send it off to the customer, PitchMark it. When you then send your PowerPoint slide, include the certificate. And then the licensing part. Let's say the customer says, yes, we really like your idea, we want to license it. Then what? How do you get paid? And that's again the second part where PitchMark comes into play. So, and you can follow along with me on your own website if you wish, because we're now going to talk through how to actually do the PitchMarking process. First of all, you go to pitchmark.net, which allows you to sign up for an account for free. pitchmark.net. And what you'll see is that you'll be able to add all of the details about yourself over here. You should be able to visit the site on your own. And when you click register, it'll ask you for a few details. You can add some promotional details as well. For example, in addition to your usual details about your name and address and other things that will appear on the certificate to stake your claim in your idea, you can also add a few details about yourself and therefore offer your services through the PitchMark website. Once you have registered with all the relevant details, you then are able to log in. You reach this page here, and of course, once you log in, there's also a two-factor authentication, which you will be asked to sign up for so that you can enter your account. And when you do, that's when you end up on the PitchMark dashboard, which looks something like this. And again, let me just talk you through what's in the dashboard so that you can orientate yourself. First of all, there are the latest uploads. These are the details of the certificates which I've created as I've shown other groups through our platform. Also, your preferred payment platform. This is critically important because obviously you want to be paid for your ideas. So this is not the preferred payment platform through which you wish to make payments. This is the platform through which you wish to receive payments from people who have licensed your ideas. And you can see I've connected a Stripe account. Payments received, you can see that down here, where in this case, we went through this process with another group. The article for a magazine, here it is, paid $100. And what's critical is that even though the PitchMark platform operates on the blockchain, it's the Tezos blockchain, all the transactions are actually handled by credit card. So just because it's on the blockchain doesn't mean that you will be paid in a coin, right? A cryptocurrency. Actually, you get paid by credit card. So that's how you receive the cash for your ideas. And once again, I will walk you through. Now, let's firstly delve into what happens to PitchMark your idea. In other words, you've got your graphic design, you've got your white paper, your text, your music, whatever it is. The first thing that you need to do is generate a PitchMark certificate. And this is how it works. Have a look here on the screen. What documents are you PitchMarking? Well, I'm just going to put presentation materials just for fun. What company or person is the file for? And I'm just going to put a random name over here. Critically, the name is important. It is important for you to state the individual's name, who you are sending your idea through to. Because after all, we're looking at deterrence. Having a certificate is all well and good, but you want to have the name of the recipient on the certificate so that when you send it to them and they receive it together with your PowerPoint slide or whatever the file is that you've PitchMarked, they'll be able to see their name on the cert and they'll be able to say, okay, wow, these guys are very serious. People behave differently when they're being watched. And so the idea is to give them the sense that, okay, there is an exchange happening here and I'm on the hook. I see my name here on your documentation. What is the pitch for? Well, let's call it, here we are, Crisis Comms Workshop or Walkthrough of PitchMark, something like that. Who is the creator? Well, obviously I'm going to put my name. Here we go. And select the work category. What should we pick? Architecture, just for fun. Maybe you're an architect and you're PitchMarking your designs before you send them to the client. And you don't want the client to just hire another architect or another builder to just act on your designs. You want them to like your designs, but not so much that they'll rip them off. Or more to the point, you'll want to show them your designs so that they'll say yes. And because you, the architect, take your work seriously, that's why, okay, we'd better respect their IP right. So what should we put here? Visualization and what else here? 3D, here we are, architectural renderings. Let's just put that. Cool. Now, hide from the pitch feed. We don't recommend this because the whole point of PitchMark is to deter people ripping off your ideas. And so what we publish is not the idea itself, but we make sure that the world knows that you have had this idea and that you are prepared to stand behind it. And you can see other pitch markers here over the years. This is a selection here that you're seeing where different people have pitch marked their work, right? And you can see the details that they have pitch marked. And this pitch feed is part of the deterrence effect because you want, in our example, Andrew Tan from generic company, to know that they are on notice that you take your IP seriously. And the pitch feed is part of the design for that, putting them on notice. Look, here's your name. The world knows that you have received this idea. So that's why we do not recommend turning off the pitch feed. So we're now ready to choose the files, and I'm just going to choose, what am I going to choose? Maybe I'll choose this one, just for fun. You can add more files if you wish, up to 10 at the moment. And then here's a bit about AI, because this question does come up from time to time. Can I generate something with AI and then pitch mark that as my own? The short answer is yes. The long answer is that in some jurisdictions, designs created by AI are not automatically then held, the copyright to those designs are not automatically then held by you. So you can use AI. In this case, you can see I've put Gemini just for fun to do a little bit of editing, right? You can put whatever engine you wish. Should we put ChatGPT? Yep, like so. And in some jurisdictions, in essence, when you get some AI tool to create the idea, you don't automatically own the copyright. The United States is one such jurisdiction. So it's in your interest to be upfront and transparent about whether you used AI to create it. Now, that's the legalistic aspect. Remember, right now, all we're trying to signal to the recipient is, don't mess with me, I take my idea seriously, right? We're dealing with the deterrence aspect, not the litigation aspect. And so in order to deter, we will want to now create this certificate. And once your documentation is uploaded, as you'll see in a few moments, you'll see these details appear in your dashboard. Now, what's happening on the back end is that you're actually able to, here it is at the top, right? This is the one we just hashed. What's happened on the back end is that now your documentation has received a hash, which is a fairly complicated term describing the blockchaining process, right? And isn't that what we just did a few seconds ago? Can you see it? Presentation materials, walkthrough of PitchMark. And here is the file down here that we PitchMarked. There we go. There it is. At least it's represented by this hash. And you've even got my autograph at the bottom of that. Now, this certificate is useful in a number of ways. The first thing is that you would want to include it with the documents you're pitching, right? So you're going along to your presentation to the customer. You've got your PowerPoint slides, but you're not just displaying them on the screen. You are also displaying this certificate because you're signaling to everybody in the room, don't think that you're just going to screenshot my ideas and pass them off as your own. The signal is, think twice. Don't do it. Now, does it absolutely guarantee that nobody will screenshot your work? Of course not. This can't hold a gun to their heads. But you can certainly signal to them, I'm going to be trouble for you if you try to rip off my ideas. There are other features of this, such as the verifier. In essence, what this allows you to do is, or allows the user to do, is to check that your certificate actually matches the documents that you say it matches. And so what you do is you go along here, you click on Verify Documents, here it is, and now they will be able to upload the document. And you can see down here, it's got a green tick. In essence, that means that yes, the file that was just uploaded matches the file that this certificate covers. So that's also proof to the recipient that this is a genuine file. You haven't just generated a certificate for the fun of it, even though the document itself that you've sent them isn't the one being certified. So you would want to make sure that you create the PitchMark certificate every time that you send it to somebody new, and their name then appears, and they then get the message, don't mess with me. Now, on occasion, we then have had questions, what if I have a whole class of people, right? And I set out talking about this at the beginning of our webcast. What happens if you're a corporate trainer and you've got 20 adult learners in the room, and every one of those adult learners then asks you for a copy of your slides? What do? Do you now PitchMark the document 20 times for every adult learner with their name? Yes, that is certainly an option. And it's free to PitchMark. So it doesn't cost you any money. It's free to have a PitchMark account. It's free to PitchMark your documents. Another way, of course, is to simply add everybody's name in the class to the one PitchMark certificate. The certificate gets rather long with everybody's name reflected. But the point, once again, is to ensure that every recipient of your idea is on notice not to rip off your ideas. Okay, so far, that's what we have talked through. We've got ourselves our PitchMark certificate, and we are now able, here we go. We are now able to send that certificate along with the documentation to, well, virtually anybody you wish. You could perhaps just take the URL. Here we go. You just go here in the top. You copy and paste the domain link that you see here. And then you include that in the email. Right? So you would say, dear so-and-so, thank you for listening to our presentation. Here are the PowerPoint slides that we presented. And here is the PitchMark Intellectual Property Certificate. Once again, we're looking to deter. We're looking to put it on notice. In a very subtle way, we're looking to put them on notice that we care about our ideas. Or it could be, dear so-and-so, dear Andrew, thank you for your interest in our curriculum. And here are the PowerPoint slides. Ideally, you would PDF them, maybe even protect them with a password. And here is the PitchMark Intellectual Property Certificate. So that once again, they can click on the link and see the certificate for themselves. Now, if the client or the prospect then says, well, hang on a minute, what is the certificate all about? Then you have in essence sparked the conversation that you've wanted to have all along. Do you remember 20 minutes ago I said that nobody wants to put off the client from adopting the idea, buying the idea, licensing the idea? Well, now, because you've put the certificate in front of them, the aim is for them to start this conversation. And once you are able to talk professionally about the fact that you value your IP, now, once again, as that conversation ensues, the recipient is less likely to rip it off. Now, in certain circumstances, it might be that they say, oh, wow, well, this certificate is a bit of a problem for us. I'm not sure we can guarantee that nobody will rip off your ideas. In which case, once again, the certificate has served its purpose. You've, in essence, possibly dodged a bullet. If this customer objects to you having asserted your rights over your ideas and the written expression of your ideas in the form of the PowerPoint slides or the white paper or whatever it is, then maybe this is not the sort of prospect you want to deal with. They've kind of identified themselves, surfaced themselves as somebody who might actually rip off your ideas. Now, hopefully it doesn't get to that stage. Maybe it's simply that they say, well, we have a problem with this certificate because, our legal counsel is very sticky about this. Okay, well then have a conversation with the legal counsel. And perhaps you can then clarify what rights you assert. And the legal counsel might be able to clarify what aspects of your intellectual property they need to use. Is it just the foreground IP? That is the intellectual property you've created for this client? Or is it the background IP, where it's everything else you have in the company? Once again, at least you're now having a conversation which otherwise would never have taken place. And because you're now able to have that conversation, rather than, the client kind of being weary and saying, gosh, we'd better not deal with this person, they probably actually respect you more because you're acting like a large company, even though maybe you're just a sole operator. Cool, so we've got our certificate, and now we're able to spark conversations with customers, conversations that otherwise we wouldn't have. The next step, of course, is to actually license your idea to them. So let's say, once again, you've got a prospective customer, and you've done some sort of architectural design, graphic design, white paper, text, right? All those things I've mentioned. Now you actually come around to wanting to get them to actually license the idea, to actually use the idea, and pay you for it. And for that purpose, that's why we return to our dashboard. Here we go. Should be able to see that. Let me just double check that you can. Yep, here's our dashboard. And we are now ready to send an offer to the client. So step one, deterrence, PitchMark your work is free. Send the certificate, have conversations about your IP. Step two, the customer's now ready to buy. You want to be paid for your work. So what happens is you click here on Send Offer, and now you enter the Ideas Exchange. And here, once again, is the certificate, which you can view one more time. And you add the details of the person that you're licensing them to. And in general, we recommend that you actually put the real names of people. Don't just put the company name. Remember, a lot of IP theft, idea theft, happens in informal, casual settings. It's not the company that has a policy to rip off your idea. It's the individual who you're pitching to who thinks, I could get a promotion if I pitch this idea as my own. And because we're dealing with individuals, that's why you would want to put the individual's name. And of course, their email address. So we're just going to put, what are we going to put? Andrew@company.com. There we go. There it is. Now, their phone number, and I'm just going to make this one up. And the price in US dollars. This is now the amount of money that you set for your idea. How much you charge is entirely up to you. The minimum price is 100 US dollars. After all, your ideas should be worth significantly more than that. So just for the sake of our conversation today, let's say we are selling our idea for $10,000. And what else are we going to put in here? Offer title. We're going to say presentation materials for architectural. Oh, let's start that again. Architectural drafts for house extension, let's just say. Right, and if there are some additional notes that you want to add, you can do so here. If you're a lawyer or working with a lawyer, they can just as easily use this and put their own notes in. Then we're talking about what type of license you are issuing. Broadly speaking, most of the time, you would probably be creating a license to the customer for work that you own and claim the moral rights to. But you, in essence, want to signal, I'm going to keep my rights to be recognized as the original creator. As our legal advisor Frank Rittman shared last time, this is a French invention, moral rights. Or, transfer ownership altogether. And that might be applicable if, let's say, you've been commissioned to produce certain work. Let's say, for example, you're a freelance writer and an editor has said to you, hey, we have a story for you. Can you please research the story, do all the interviews, and then draft a 1,200-word feature for our magazine, for our online site. Now, in other words, you've been told you're going to get paid for this. The idea is not yours. The idea is the editor's, but they have commissioned you to do this work. And in this case, you might, in conversation with the editor, decide to permanently transfer your ownership. Of course, if you are just that freelance writer and you have come up with the editorial idea and you have come up with the, this article, then you'd probably want to choose this box. You're pitching it to the editor, right? You would say, hey, editor, dear Madam Editor, I'd like to present this editorial idea. I would like to write an article about it. If you like the idea, let's agree on a fee, and then I would be happy to produce it. That way, you would probably PitchMark that idea here in the deal type. And that way, when you then transfer, when you then send your finished article, they would, in essence, then receive this license at the same time. Now I'm scrolling down to the licensing conditions. Where does the license apply? Is it worldwide? Is it selected countries? I'll leave that to your discretion. License validity. Well, what should we put? Should we put today? There we go. And when is the license until? Well, here we go. Let's just, for the sake of our conversation today, 31st of December. Can the licensee assign the license to somebody else? Broadly, that gets rather complicated, so you might say no. There are some instances when you might decide that, yeah, actually the person I'm licensing it to can onward license that. Can they disclose details of the creative work to others? The default is no, but unless it's a state secret, it's possibly okay to say yes if the client asks for it. Is the license exclusive to this licensee? Once again, this is a business conversation that you're having with the recipient. I mean, if it is an article that you're pitching, then yeah, the editor might very well want to have exclusive rights to publish your story. Whereas, if you're producing work for a homeowner, you're an architect, you're designing their home extension, and you want to be able to now sell the same idea, same plans to other homeowners who own similar bungalows, then yeah, maybe you do want to make this a non-exclusive license. And then I'm scrolling down here to further grant of rights, select all those that apply. Should they be able to reproduce the creative work? Let's say, for example, you've come up with a certain design and you're now talking to a mug creator like this one, right? And you want to see your design on the mug, or somebody wants to license your idea for their mugs, then yeah, they probably need a license to be able to reproduce these mugs and therefore your creative works. So that would probably be a yes. Talk to your lawyer. Allow the licensee to publish or publicly perform the creative work. allow them to distribute your creative work or to create adaptations. So once we've selected all these boxes, you don't need a law degree to do so. This is, again, a business conversation. You click on Send Offer, and now it hashes your work. And now what I will show you is what the receiver gets, because clearly you want the recipient, you want to know what the recipient side of this equation is as well, right? So let's take a look at the recipient side. The buyer receives an offer and it looks like, whoops, here we go, sharing screen. It looks like this. So they have now received an email, which in essence reflects all of the details that you just talked about. Right, let's go back here. There's the license agreement. There's the price. In this case, it was $100. Just now I showed you 10,000. It's really up to you. And then all the licensing terms, which we also set in the previous screen. Here they are. You'll recognize these titles because we just walked through them. And then at the bottom, they will then be able to buy, review, and accept offer. And when they do that, they're in essence invited to, once again, register for the site, set up their 2FA, and in their dashboard, they can now see the offer that they have received from you. Once again, the details, same details as you set, which they then receive by email. And here we go, accept and pay. And when they click on that, there goes the credit card information where they can then pay you directly for your idea. And as I mentioned at the outset, the idea is that you would actually get paid in cash rather than Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, which is of course precisely why we then use the credit card payments. Once that's done, this is the buyer view of the ideas exchange, and you can see all the details, offer accepted, your certificate is ready. And in fact, they then get a certificate where their name now appears. And you would expect that, right? If you're selling an idea to somebody, you would expect them to be then recognized as such. And that's what then appears here in the dashboard. Whoops, there we go. And now, ta-da, they would be able to see the certificate in their name. So that's broadly the idea behind firstly, creating a PitchMark certificate and being able to demonstrate to people without payment that you take your ideas seriously. And these are the ideas that you are PitchMarking, or at least the written expression of the ideas that you're PitchMarking. And the second step is then to actually be able to generate revenue from it by licensing it through the PitchMark platform. And you could see how fast and easy that was. So 15 minutes to the end of our webinar. Now's the time to turn to your question. So this is the one to get to PitchMark. This is the one where you register for the free PitchMark account and get to PitchMark your documents for free. But I have another QR code here at the ready for you. That's this one. Join our WhatsApp community and we can continue this conversation long after our webinar is over. So let's take in some of the questions that you have asked. Please get those questions in soon because we will be wrapping on time at the bottom or the top of the hour. Here we go. Dominic, hi, thank you for this question. You've written, as an employee, I'm concerned about the IP that many corporations are paying employees and building their names and the rewards come to naught after the hard work and sacrifice. And as a founder, I believe this is unacceptable. Yeah, Dominic, you've got a good point. As an employee, often in your employment contract, it actually says that, whatever ideas you come up with belong to the company. And to an extent, that makes sense, right? If a company is paying you a salary, you come up with ideas as part of your day-to-day work, then yeah, we could accept that the company then owns those ideas. But of course, if as a founder you face that situation in reverse, that's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? If as the founder, you find that you have employees and in the ordinary course of business, they create ideas and then they go off and create rival companies to yours in order to produce your product or the product that they designed for you, then that's clearly something that you probably need to do something about. That's probably a broader conversation, though, than just pitchmarking ideas. There's it should be in their employment contracts that the ideas that they create for you are in fact, belong to your founded company. So we can, in fact, you would probably want to have a deeper conversation with somebody about it. But absolutely, you would use PitchMark for your ideas, or maybe get your staff to regularly create pitch marks on a company PitchMark account. It's definitely possible. Hi, Calvin. Thank you. You've asked this question. PitchMark functions as a digital notary using blockchain. Yes, you could certainly say that. Acting as strong forensic evidence rather than a statutory copyright registration. Yes, and we'll discuss. It enhances legal enforceability in potential IP disputes by creating a clear timeline and placing recipients under a verifiable obligation of confidence. Yes, well said. Thank you, Calvin. You've popped that in thanks to the AI-generated summary. And broadly, that is the case. We are looking at deterrence, first and foremost. We're looking at making people think twice. We hope, of course, it'll never get to litigation. But if it does, you now have documentation to say, look at all the effort I went through to signal to this person to the defendant, right, that I pitchmarked my materials, that I take my materials seriously. So yes, this is probably an accurate AI summary. Hi, Tony. You've also sent me this question. Is the certificate a PDF A4 that customers and designers have as printouts for consistency? Yes, it is both. You can flash it up on the screen. You can print it out. It's A4 sized. You can print it in color or black and white if you wish. Send it along. There's a QR code on it that allows people to check the veracity of this particular pitchmark. Correct, Tony. Hi, Shana. Shana is asking, how much does it cost to pitchmark an idea? The answer is it's free. And to be sure, what we are pitchmarking is the written expression of the idea. Now, the lawyers get their knickers in a twist over this, but in essence, what that means is that when you have a PDF document, a PowerPoint slides, keynote slides, maybe you have a Word document, an MP4 file, right? Whatever the expression of your idea is. It could be a Word document, whatever it is. You would, in essence, want to pitchmark that document. Ideas in and of themselves, the lawyers argue, exist in our heads only. It is really only when we've written them down or put our designs down on paper. That's when you have the written expression, and that is in fact what you then pitchmark. And yes, correct, it is free. Now, Ken is asking this question. Hi, Ken. If the client decides to violate, despite accepting the pitchmark certificate, how is it enforced and what evidence do we need to win the case? Well, isn't this exactly what we're looking to deter? So first and foremost, have a conversation about your IP rights before you even get to a contract. The pitchmark certificate provides you with the common language with which to have this conversation. Put the certificate in front of them. Now, if the recipient still goes off and rips off your idea, despite you putting them on notice, despite putting a piece of paper with their name in front of them, despite you having this conversation, then chances are you actually have quite a bit of evidence now in your favor. That is, you have the certificate, you've possibly got some emails, you've got some notes from the conversation, maybe even an AI summary of this IP conversation that you've had with them. You've bulked up on all this potential evidence that you can lay out then in front of the court. But ultimately, it is still the domain of the courts to decide. As plaintiffs, all we can do is present as best evidence we can and hope that the court sees things our way. That is the case in virtually any patent dispute. That's the case in any trademarking dispute. So even if you've registered your designs with the Intellectual Property Office in your jurisdiction, it is still up to the courts to decide. There are still people who, despite having a patent, lose their case because the court finds against them. There is nothing and nobody that can change the views of the courts, unless, of course, you decide to appeal. And because there is no way to make this as simple and black and white and watertight as you might like, you need to have as much working in your favor as you can. So get your emails together, get your meeting notes together, get the pitchmark certificate. give it to your lawyer and say, look, despite putting this in front of them, they still ripped off the idea. The lawyers will be right. Great, right? Tab 1. Let's assemble all of this evidence in the supporting documentation. But the hope is at all times that actually you would not have to go to court to begin with, because you're making the recipient think twice. Ken, you've also added another PS to your question. Their name may be on the PitchMark certificate, but if they get another person, would it still be enforceable? Yeah, so I come back to the point about deterrence. Quite clearly, it is possible for the recipient, in my earlier example, the generic Andrew, to then hand it over to his friend Jennifer and say, hey, Jenny, I feel a bit uncomfortable about ripping off Ken's idea, but why don't you do it? So yeah, is that possible? Of course. How do we influence this behavior? How do we stop them? How do we make them think twice and say, no, I tell you what, Jenny, let's just have a conversation with Ken to see how we can find a way to work together, perhaps. And at least now you're having a conversation facilitated by that common language. Calvin, what is the file size for each upload? I've got huge file sizes for training content. The file sizes are in fact being lifted as we speak, and you should have no problem with training content. If that is not the case, please click on the live chat in the corner of the screen and we will help you. But yes, broadly speaking, large files are possible on PitchMark. On to some of the questions you've asked here in the chat function. Now I'm just going to navigate back here. Here we go. We've got quite a number of your questions coming through. 5 minutes to the end. Is this webinar PitchMarked? Well, if you want to share this webinar, you are very welcome to, and by Monday, you'll be able to see it on YouTube. Arguably, actually, we need more people to ensure that, the whole conversation about IP is part of conversation. So I welcome you to share this video recording. Can I build my own PitchMark similar platform? Well, be my guest if that's what you want to do. But remember that what we're looking at here is not just the technology. Because arguably, if you can get yourself a trademark, be my guest. Would you now reinvent a trademarking platform? Probably not. And also, given the size of our community, that will obviously lend weight when you put this PitchMark in front of people, and people are like, oh, wow, it's these people. Okay, we'd better not rip off their ideas. Okay, another question that's come in from you. I'm asking that if I am a creator of any website and hosting a website on a third-party server, meaning that I am a blogger. Okay, so you're a blogger, you've designed a website. Okay, and you're hosting it. Does Google own it? And if someone steals my IP, is it possible to charge them? Am I possible to charge them? Now, if you're using the word charge in a criminal law sense, then no. In general, IP law this is something that the state will not sue on your behalf, right? Will not take somebody to court and charge them. It's not like it's theft or murder, as it were, right? Is it possible to charge them in a financial sense? Not sure I'm getting your question right. Wherever there is a recipient of your idea, you would want to PitchMark it. Slip in the certificate. Provide it along with your documentation. A website. Actually, we did have this on a previous call where we had a web designer on the call who was complaining that he had somebody ask him for a web design. He then came up with the wireframes and all the designs and all those nice good things. And then when they sent them the designs, the recipient said, nah, this isn't quite what I'm looking for. We've decided to go into another direction. Have you heard that before? We've decided to go in another direction. Only to then see their own designs implemented. So if you are that sort of web designer, then yes, you would want to PitchMark your wireframes, your designs, your Figma, if you're using that software, in order to deter the recipient from ripping off your idea. Does your IP include someone using my information from the website? Misrepresent me. Create a false impression of me being the sender. Charge the accused. So once again, in this context, charge the accused is probably a criminal law term rather than a civil law term. It is not possible to charge somebody as an individual. Only the prosecutor can do that together with the police. What you can certainly do is to take somebody to court to litigate under a civil law pretext. And wow, if they're misrepresenting you, creating false impressions, sounds like you ought to talk to your lawyer about what's going on there. Okay, couple of minutes left for your further questions. How do I protect my IP in business development, where I'm sharing my high-level training framework and models with B2B prospects? Wow, well, if that's you, absolutely, that's where PitchMark is at. Send it along with the PowerPoint slides, with the curriculum. If they've asked you to share videos of yourself, send it along. When you don't, this is what we call a naked PDF, where you're just sending a PDF document with your curriculum and hoping upon hope that the recipient will do the right thing by you. Well, good luck to you. Often, especially institutes of higher learning, have fairly complicated IP clauses in their documentation. We went through some of those in our most recent webinar, which you'll also find on our PitchMark YouTube channel. Ultimately what you'll face is, the risk that somebody in this institution then takes your curriculum and teaches it as their own. They've even in my own line of work come across people, educational institutions, who quite bluntly tell you that they will take a recording of your lecture, of your workshop. They will, quite honestly, take that recording and upload it onto their internal LMS, learning management system, without any payment to you, right? Royalty-free, in perpetuity. Well, there you would definitely want to have a conversation with them to deter that sort of behavior. And once again, PitchMark your curriculum. So you've got a timestamp and you've got the evidence and you can show them that to their face. I think this might be the second last question. How do I protect my IP in pilot skills training program? More training programs where I've shared my detailed training framework, models and scripts with learners, assuming the company does not want to continue. How do I protect assuming that the recipient does not want to continue? Isn't that sinking feeling? You've gone to the pitch, you've proffered your idea, you've said, I've got this great curriculum, look at this great feedback that I've had in the past. Can I talk to you about it? And then you go along to the pitch meeting with the head of learning or whoever it is, and then you show them your curriculum and you're thinking, great, I'm sure this pitch went very well. I'm sure they're going to become a customer and this whole IP conversation will go away. You finish the meeting, you go back home, you go back to your office. A week later, you call the prospect and say, hey, great to see you at the pitch meeting last week. How about it? Can I run these workshops for you? And then the recipient says, oh, well, thanks for the pitch, but actually we've decided to go with another vendor. And then you're thinking, holy moly, what am I going to do now? I left them my PDF document. What happens if they take my curriculum and give it to that other vendor? And if you've ever been in that situation and you've had that sinking feeling that, gosh, was I a little bit too open with my materials? Don't do that again. PitchMark your materials. Send them along. If the client then still says, thanks for the pitch, but we're going to deal with a different vendor, you might like to say, well, thank you very much for letting me know. Please do let me know, what was it about my pitch where there might have been some shortcomings? Where did we go wrong that made you go with somebody else? And by the way, please be reminded that we assert our rights to the materials which I sent you last time. Gentle reminder, here is the PitchMark certificate. Once again, you're now having conversations that you probably never had before. I realize we're slightly over time, so let me make sure that I can answer these questions. How do I protect my IP for licensed programs where the company trainers have used my training framework for 2 years? How do I stop them after the license period ends? Well, once again, this is why you would have the PitchMark license. You've already sent it to them. You have asked for payment. You have received payment in cash into your online payment account. And now, 2 years in, right, certainly 3 months before the end of that 2-year license period, you would then actually say to them, so our license is due for renewal. Are you going to renew? And if the client then says, we've kind of moved on, we're no longer going to use it, great. Now you've got that on in writing, hopefully. Make sure you get it by email. Or perhaps even a written documentation. And then you would once again send them the same PitchMark certificate and say, okay, thank you anyway for doing the licensing for the past 2 years. It's been good to have your customers, hoping to work with you again in the future. And by the way, here is the PitchMark certificate to reassert our rights over the curriculum you've had. I would add, though, as a trainer myself, that you probably want to get to a position where you are anyway updating your materials. And even if they continue to teach the outdated ones, you've anyway got a newer version, which of course, if you are, if you're training, you would then PitchMark the newer version. Okay, just a handful more. How can I integrate PitchMark if I'm selling my course on Udemy? On the Udemy platform, as part of the learning management system, you are actually given the opportunity to include graphics along with videos and text. And if you do want to include a link to your PitchMark certificate, of course you can. Now I say that, however, we must also know or be aware that the Udemy platform is reviewed, right? So when you submit your course to Udemy, you would actually, it will go through a review process where somebody actually watches the videos you've created. You've got to create half an hour worth of videos, remember, and somebody reviews the text. So, if somebody then says, oh, what's this PitchMark thing about? Then, have that conversation with them. Udemy itself also has certain types of IP clauses in its documentation. And in general, in my interactions with Udemy, they're actually pretty good about those sort of things. Okay, Shana, you've asked, can I PitchMark an idea without name of audience yet? Yes, you can. If you so wish, go through the, sign up for PitchMark, click Generate Certificate, and where it says name of the person you're sending it to, maybe you'd put your own name if you wish, right? So that way you still have the certificate, you still have the timestamp. But then obviously, if you are going to send it on to somebody else, you might want to PitchMark the document again. You cannot edit the PitchMark certificate after it's been created, because that's the whole point, right? An indelible mark. Tony, how does PitchMark make money? Thank you for asking that question. In essence, we absorb a whole lot of costs when it comes to PitchMarking for free, because the Tezos blockchain, like all other blockchains, do charge what's known as gas fees. And if you're into the crypto space, you'll know what that's about. In essence, we have a licensing agreement where, again, if you're sending your license worth, let's say, $100 to a customer, and you want to then collect that $100, there are certain platform fees that are charged by your payment provider, right? So if you're using PayPal or Stripe, then obviously there'll be a deduction and there'll be a PitchMark platform fee as well. So the deterrence part is entirely free, and the only time that PitchMark earns such a platform fee is at the time that you've actually made a sale, which brings us, of course, to the end of our session today, and my hope that you will, in fact, make tons of money from your ideas. Join us in the PitchMark community. The QR code and link are on the screen now. Create your free account, PitchMark for free, and hopefully we will also see you on our WhatsApp group, where we will continue to update you on future events where we talk about PitchMarking your documents, or perhaps particular industry sectors where IP theft is rife. Thanks again for your time and attention today. I'm Mark Laudy, looking forward to seeing you on WhatsApp. Bye for now.